Whatto chaps, I'm Magical Mike, and it's the end of 2022, so time once more to talk about all that went on. Or in this case, all that didn't. The channel was incredibly sparse this year, and even that might be an understatement. By the way, I do one of these videos every year, and I have done since 2012, so if you do want to see next year's, then leave a like and subscribe for it, because apparently I'm now one of those channels that uploads extremely infrequently now, and you'll probably need a notification to even remember that you did subscribe in the first place. So yeah, like and subscribe I guess. So what's the story? Because in 2022 I managed a whopping 6 videos, not including this one. 6. That is genuinely terrible. It's not even one a month. Worse, there was one in February, one in May, and the final 4 all in June, and not a single upload since. It's safe to say that consistency never really had a chance, did it? So what happened? I don't really have much of an answer. Even talking to myself in this video trying to answer that question honestly is leaving me without a lot of good reasoning, and those that I do have are entirely unsatisfying, so sorry about that, but there you go. It just happens to be the reality of being involved in a creative process sometimes. The inspiration doesn't hit, or the mood falls flat, or however many other real life things get in the way. And that all sucks to say, because there's plenty of channels out there that do push through and grind that content out, and well done to them for it. It's not as easy as it looks. I feel like I could spam out some pretty low quality rushed videos more easily, but then I wouldn't be happy with those, and then what would be the point? I'm really only doing this for myself anyway, so if I'm not into my own content, then why would you guys be? You know, I appreciate that you do watch what I put out, but I do also still want to put in the effort to these eventual uploads as well. Which is all to say that over the course of the year, I haven't had an easy time just sitting down to just write anything. I have a ton of random notes on things that we'll talk about in a bit, and random footage for planned ideas that didn't get very far, but none of it got glued together to create anything finished, and that's not great. And if you know me at all, then you know that I can't deal with the summer heat whatsoever, so those months are always a total write-off. And winter this year managed to disrupt me a lot as well. I genuinely don't think I've been able to keep a steady sleep schedule for longer than about 3 or 4 days in a row since mid-September. Not great. Anyway, boo-hoo, woe is me and all of that, so alright, enough pity party crap, who cares? Let's talk some content then. Recently in LEGO Lord of the Rings came up out of nowhere. I pretty much said all I wanted to in the video, but I'm not really much of a fan of the LEGO games, so I'm not really sure why I picked this up to begin with. But the game was surprisingly more fun than I thought it would be. I'd played some of the LEGO Batman game years ago, and while I don't really get bored with games all that often, I definitely did with that one. So I expected to in LEGO Lord of the Rings as well, and was pleasantly surprised and engaged the whole time. So I didn't get bored with it. That's good. And I got a good 30 hours or so to finish all the achievements, and I'd say that was more than decent. Even if some of that was padding and grind, but most importantly, it got me to go and rewatch the trilogy, which I haven't done in I don't know how many years, so that result alone was fantastic. Recently in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was the last video I made. This one was fun to talk about. Star Wars games are often very hit or miss, and very rarely do they just land in the middle somewhere. This one managed to be a solid hit. So much that there's even a sequel coming in 2023, which is shocking considering that it's an EA title and you know what they're like with sequels. Star Wars as a setting lends itself so well to a feeling of proper adventure, which is great for gaming despite the genre sounding so generic. Adventure game. Obviously there's nuance and a lot of aspects to it that sort it from the rest of the not so crowded adventure game genre these days, which I detailed in the video review itself. It was just a fun romp through a fantasy space setting with laser sword wizards and pew pew blaster sounds, that also managed to have uncomplicated but robust movement and combat mechanics peppered in to the mostly linear exploration progression. And it helps a lot that the combat itself is always at threat of actually killing you, putting up if not a full challenge all of the time, then at least a decent fight most of the time. The game kept its basic mechanics engaging, and that's impressive enough for a 10 to 20 hour experience. Just those two then, so quids in had to match, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice being the first. I said last year that I was considering streaming this, but I'm glad that I chose not to. The game's great, and I don't want to spoil any of it, so you should just check out my review or go and play it yourself. Oddly, a few similar reasons why Jedi Fallen Order felt good to play. Decent story, well realised themes, a totally unique angle that felt genuine, a cool Nordic setting, and well put together controls that made the combat feel responsive, gritty and punchy when you parried or landed solid hits. I could just reiterate what I said in the review, but I already said that stuff and probably said it better there, so yeah, go watch that video instead. And a surprise Vampire Survivors review. I did not expect to be so taken by such a simple game, but hey, it was cheap, it came at the perfect time, the moment-to-moment gameplay is fun for all the right reasons, and that's about all it needed to do. There's a ton of collecting to do in there, loads of achievements and secrets to find, characters to try, weapons to evolve, chest music to listen to, level up gems to pick up, enemies to blast and grim reapers to fall over to. It's not hard to understand, but underneath it can be surprisingly complex if you want it to be. There is a meta for sure, and finding that can potentially ruin all your future runs unless you restrict yourself in your weapon choices or you just stay open-minded about stuff. But it remained fun for well into double-digit hours, which is incredible value for the tiny amount that it sells for. Although I will say I can't say I'm not a fan of the dev doing paid DLC that also adds achievements to ruin my 100% run though. Even if it is also cheap, it just doesn't feel right to me and my collectathon desires. Finally, all that remains are a couple of miscellaneous videos. First off, and first that I did in the year, was my top beginner tips for Dark Souls 1. I actually made this totally on a whim, because I was trying to get someone to play one of my favourite games, but it has such a reputation that it's genuinely a hurdle to overcome without a bit of a light push in the right direction. So I put together a bunch of my knowledge, simplified it down as much as I could, explained in growing detail over the course of the video and boiled things down to what I consider to be the most important things to know when starting the game. Mostly to avoid frustration because I see it's very easy for new players to not understand some fundamentals and have a negative reaction to things, mostly from that pre-stress of knowing the game has this difficulty reputation. In the end, when you let go of that idea and treat it like any other game, you end up realising that it just isn't unfair at all and the combat becomes fun. It's just like any other game really. At least in my opinion, anyway. And I do see that trend happen with most people that end up liking this series too, so I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. I think it's a decent video, but there's loads of these on YouTube that are full of memes and zoomer editing that get tons more views. But it is what it is, and that ain't what I do here. And finally, my Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons review. Well, I'm not totally happy with this review anymore. I think I was rather forgiving of a lot of things in order to attempt to be more positive about how the expansion actually was. However, a little more time passed and I found myself not playing it anymore, and my friend groups also not being that interested either. My raid group slowly stopped being able to field a full team, hardly anyone was using the EOD Elite specs apart from Mechanist, and even then, that class has developed a huge following of dislike around it. I still think it's fair to say that EOD was a decent X-Pack, so don't get me wrong for what it's worth, but for a more casual player. For me, I was done with it remarkably quickly, and if I hadn't done 9 playthroughs, then I would have been pretty bored of it even faster than that. We've also had some really bad balance patches that toppled community goodwill off a cliff, so that wasn't great either, and as I said, Mechanists overperforming and being an absolute eyesore all over everybody's screens and streams that you look at is absolutely rubbish. Everybody is sick of it. Even Mechanist players are sick of it too. So, yeah, that's a bit of a mistake, huh? And to top all that off, there was no real new content to play all year either, with Season 1 being re-released instead to make Steam players better understand the overall plot. It left no time for Season 6 to appear. Now I played Season 1 originally in, 2013? And I kinda hated it. It's not a hidden thing. I have videos talking about how I really didn't like a lot of it, so seeing it again with no real major changes didn't really make anything better. So I had nothing to play in Guild Wars 2 since June or so. And don't get me wrong, it is good that Season 1 is now in the game again, but it hasn't added anything for me to enjoy for the last 6 or 7 months. So here's hoping that new content does show up at some point and is actually enjoyable to play again. And on Twitch there was nothing at all. Nothing at all. Yeah, another year of no streams. I just didn't have anything that I particularly wanted to commit to streaming, so there was just another big hiatus. I don't know, man, there's stuff I want to do, but it comes with problems too. Like, I should just do stuff, but I struggle with the ideas of talking to nobody or having nothing to say or show at all on stream, so I just kind of don't commit to doing anything. Some games just hand you stuff to chat about, like Vampire the Masquerade was brilliant for that stuff. It gave me so much plot to talk about. But what I actually want to do now is Morrowind, and I imagine there's massive chunks of an open world game like that where there just isn't anything that I'll really have to say. So I'm not quite sure what to do about that just yet. Now on to a few things that I said I wanted to do in 2022 in last year's video. The Halo reviews. Yeah, I thought I might stream Halo 1, but I realised it would be pretty dull in the end. I was just going through it on normal difficulty to get through the Master Chief Saga playlist, so I didn't bother because it wasn't even all that engaging to play either. The Halo 2 review is technically ongoing, but the script is so massive and needs a massive rewrite as well. I also need to finish replaying the game at some point. I got to Gravemind on my replay and just kind of stopped, so I need to pick that back up at some point and finish writing that script, and then probably rewrite it, because it's just too big. I said I'd hoped to plan stuff in Guild Wars 2 with Ender Dragons releasing, but nothing stood out. Nothing whatsoever stood out to talk about in that game. There were no videos because there was no content for me, so that's not great. And the Stardew Valley fishing essay, which I kind of knee-jerk wanted to write, because I thought the Guild Wars 2 fishing paled in comparison in the beta from what they were telling us, but it actually turned out to be not so bad on release, so I just didn't write this script at all. I still could, and I still might, who knows about that. Again this year I did actually play a few things that I didn't get around to talking about in any videos. Dirt Rally 2 has never truly been dropped. I haven't played it in a while, but it is still something that I go back to very often. Warhammer Vermintide 2, I picked this back up in November and has been enjoying this an absolute ton again. A few friends got into it, but not to the level that I did, and I just kind of kept plugging away at it on Legend difficulty. I think it's tons of fun, and you've probably been seeing footage of it in this video. I'm considering doing an updated quids in for it too, because I only did a recently in and it was like, you know, I was not as experienced as I am now, so I think we could get a better video out of it at this point. Hollow Knight. I'm terrible at 2D games, and this one has a reputation of difficulty, just like I was saying about Dark Souls before, so I didn't play it until this year, and now I finally know why everybody loves it. It's amazing, and I have tons of notes and footage about it, but the script is currently pending. Need for Speed Heat was on sale for about £3 not too long ago, so I just went for it. I didn't expect much, but it's a really fun car collection game, and I'm all about that. Again, probably working on a script for it at this point. Dark Souls, yep, when I made that video I couldn't resist playing through it again as well, which also then led to Dark Souls 2, which I wanted to play in parallel with a friend to see the differences between the original release and the Scholar release. I'm mid-playthrough as of right now, so maybe there could be a video for it, I'm not sure. Pathfinder Kingmaker, I added a few popular mods and replayed it as an evil character this time. I got as far as the end of Troll Trouble, which is what, Act 2, but the acts are fairly long and there aren't that many of them, and then I took a really lengthy break. But I was really enjoying my custom team setup. I had all sorts of ideas going on with these characters in this run, and would probably need an entire video to talk about that stuff though, so there's an idea. Darkest Dungeon, I ended up reinstalling this on a whim, and I can't really remember why exactly, but it is still a fun game. Still also not finished a full run of that either. I've never finished that game. I didn't play much of this, and nor did I play much of Dungeons of Dreadmore, which is a roguelike dungeon crawler, and there were too many fiddly systems and items in this to really want to commit brain space to at the time, so I never really attempted to beat a run here either. It was really just a time waster while I figured out what I wanted to actually play. I did manage to die by putting a Lutefisk cube inside of another one though, Bag of Holding explosion style, so that was funny, even if it led to my death. And Darksiders 1. Lots of 3D games this year, eh? So people really love this series, and I wanted to know why, because I've never really touched it. I tried it out and it just feels a bit dated now. Even though the War Mastered Edition only came out in 2016, I found dodging to be not as effective as it is in the Souls games, and that felt kind of clunky to me. Like, it didn't feel effective at all. It just, I don't know, I didn't connect. I never see any complaints about these games though, which I find quite interesting. It wasn't bad, but I didn't get far before taking a long break. I think I got to the first proper dungeon section with the boomerang gear item upgrade thingy. I was mostly enjoying it though. I just had some awkward moments with it and then took a break, and here we are many months later and I need to pick it back up again, as with all of the games that I literally just listed apart from Vermintide 2 right now. And that is, I think, all that I did play this year. So what about next year? What to expect or think about for 2023? And to be honest, I'm not sure. I said last year that things feel slow around here on the channel now, and I doubt that's going to change. I would like to actually make content, but it's mostly just a case of managing to write a script in the first place for things. I'm the sort of person who takes notes on things all the time, just for the sake of trying to help myself remember things and organise my thoughts, so I have notes and recordings on all sorts of games and things that I do. They're everywhere, there's tons of them. It's kind of a problem, actually. I literally have 30 notepad files right now full of disjointed, disorganised notes on just games that I've been playing here and there that should theoretically be made into complete scripts at some point. And yes, I am serious, I still have a full folder from 2015 that has all the files from the first Guild Wars 2 machinima that I made that I want to do a video on, the Doom/Engineer mashup. And while that ship has long since sailed of doing a behind the scenes video on that, I do still have this stuff. The fact is, as just an example of how disorganised I can really get with that, despite kind of keeping it, and maybe you could say that's organised. I'm rambling. All that is to say that I'm not entirely sure what will get made and when at this point. But what I can do is list all of the things that I have considered or already have notes on currently. So let's do that to maybe gain some confidence or something, I don't know. So Dirt Rally 1 and 2, these should be easy, but I wanted to write the first one in a different style, so I kind of stalled on it. Hollow Knight, as I said before, I should probably replay this though, and try and remember what it was like. Need for Speed Heat, as I mentioned. Stardew Valley, man what a huge game to talk about, which that could take a while. Generation Zero. Thief 2014, this one's a bit weird because it isn't a good Thief game, but it's not as awful as people love to go on about. The Halo series, which might literally take years more to do at this rate. Baldur's Gate, well, since Larian announced that Baldur's Gate 3 releases in August this year, I should probably get on finishing the first two before then, huh? So Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 videos at some point, hopefully, maybe. Divinity Original Sin as well, maybe. Pathfinder Kingmaker, I can think of at least 2 or 3 videos that I could do with that. Knights of the Old Republic 2, but writing for that is an absolute nightmare because the game is just so good, and I don't even know where to start talking about it. The Spyro Reignited trilogy, which is probably the most complete set of notes that I have for anything currently. And Dark Souls 2, because I did a review of 1, and it seems like a sensible next step. A lot of those examples that I just went over could also be streams too, but I really just don't know yet. I've got to be in a particular mood to fire up the Twitch and see what happens on the night. I feel like Dark Souls 2 is at least an easy pick. I already have a terrible series of doing the DLC blindly on the channel and could definitely do a much better job redoing that now. But it wouldn't be blind, so maybe there's some value in that stuff still. I don't know, it's up to you guys really. It's old, so who knows. And Morrowind is still high on my list of things that I do want to play through, but it's debatable how good of a stream series that would actually be of me bumbling through and not really knowing where I'm going. What I'm saying is, I have no idea what or when I might stream this year, but I do actually hope to eventually, but we'll just kind of have to see, won't we? I am also still stuck on a GTX 970 graphics card, by the way. I've been waiting for literally years for the 3000 series to not be stupidly expensive, but GPU prices just keep taking the piss, frankly. So even the 4000 series release didn't help lower them there. In fact, if anything, it just took the piss even further, so thanks, Nvidia, really appreciate that. That was sarcasm, by the way, lads. Jeez. I sure would love to play Elden Ring at some point too, but I just can't run it yet. Sad. Anyway, I think that's enough rambling for now. Despite only making 6 videos, I still somehow managed to ramble on for this long in so-called summary. Amazing, well done Mike. This is why the Halo 2 video needs such a massive rewrite. It's like 30 minutes long and it isn't even done yet, which is frankly stupid. So, yeah. Thanks for sticking with me if you did this far. Any comments, questions or general responses are welcomed as always, and hopefully you lot are having a better time of things than my scripts have had, and hopefully we'll have a much better 2023. Here's hoping anyway. Cheers for watching.